Hi, I'm Max Porterfield, President and CEO of Callinex Mines. We're advancing very high-grade, copper-rich, massive sulfide discoveries just outside of Flin Flon, Manitoba, to extend its long-standing history of one of the top districts for these type of deposits around the world.
Max, good to see you. We haven't seen you since June last year. Strange markets, it's going to head down time and get on with it. And to that effect, you have announced a new fully funded drill program. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, really excited to get to drilling this year at Pine Bay. One of the key things is we're going to be stepping out on a discovery that we've really a century in the making in many ways, called the Descendant, that we made late last year. It's on an area of the property where the who's who of really mineral exploration and mining is targeted a giant VMS system. And so Descendant is kind of a testament to that. 1-2 holes into it, we're hitting very high, wide intervals of distal type grades that you see in these VMS systems, zinc, gold dominant. And right now we're stepping out to vector towards the high grade portion of that and where that should sit. And if successful, I truly believe we'll be on the path to potentially over 30 million ton new discovery on the property. We're already sitting with just shy of 6 million tons of 3% copper at Pine Bay. And that area is an area that the last two companies that we targeted was Plasterdome, who pined for over 30 million tons that were targeting on the property, and then Inmet shortly thereafter targeting more than 20 million tons. So a lot of people like this area. We're a couple holes into that discovery and excited to see where it goes. Beyond that, we're also going to be testing a number of other targets, 3 of them that potentially be sitting near surface along strike from Rainbow and our existing Pine Bay deposit on the property where 2 of those targets sit.
Right. Okay. So did you say how many meters you're aiming for?
We're doing a 5,000 meter drilling campaign. And again, focused on hitting a new discovery on the property with 3 target areas we've announced. And then following up on the Descendant discovery, again, the one that we've made last year.
Right. And look, I think, look, I say everyone's been sort of slightly, crushed by this market, right? And there's a lot of small but perfectly formed companies like yourself and others, perhaps who can't even raise capital like you've done. But it limits the optionality here. So when you do spend money, you've got to be really, really efficient. So you've got 5,000 meters. Can you talk us through why you've chosen to do the targets that you've chosen, why the type of drilling that you've chosen to do, and what you think that's going to do? I know you sort of touched on it, but if you can get into a bit more detail for me.
Yes, certainly. So at Pine Bay, they've gone back on the property. Exploration has gone back over a century, dating back to 1911. And actually, Callinex Mines, our predecessor company, sank a shaft in this particular area of the property in 1929. And really everybody's sat there and looked for the giant on the property based upon some key indicators. The Pine Bay property general area encompasses the largest felsic volcanic rock package that's been mapped in the Flin Flon belt. That's the host rock to 90% of these mines, but it only makes up 10% of the rock package. Near surface over where the Descendant discovery sits is a big alteration system that's mapped. And an alteration system, essentially, in layman's terms, is mapping the size of the volcanic event or the system where that eruption took place that would displace that high-grade copper deposit that we're searching for. So again, the bigger your alteration system, the bigger the correlating deposit, because the bigger the eruption to that. And so where Descendant sits, there's been an alteration system mapped at surface spans at least 700 by 1,100 meters. I just mentioned at least because it butts up to the edge of a lake. So it's truly a giant alteration system. It's 10 times larger than the alteration footprint that you have around our Rainbow deposit. We're sitting just shy of 5 million tons, part of our broader maiden resource we announced last year. So again, typically a direct correlation to the size of these systems and the correlating deposit. It's tenfold. Where we already have Rainbow that sits at nearly 5 million tons open at depth. And again, we've hit 4 lenses of massive sulfides in our main discovery hole, DSC 111. There are very, very wide intervals that we hit in that 2 10-meter wide intervals. And if you compare that to what you see at Rainbow true thickness is 8 meters. So again, the system they're seeing with these stacked lenses is where you can build a lot of tons per vertical meter. And that's how you stack volume very, very quickly in these VMS deposits. And the grades that we're hitting are indicative to being at the top of the system. So if you look at the top of the Rainbow deposit, you're looking at deposit head grade of 1.55% copper equivalent, and that's going to be zinc gold dominant. Over at Descendant, we're hitting between 1.3 to 1.7 copper equivalent, and that's again zinc dominant portion of that. And as you go at depth at Rainbow, you go proximal to where that high grade copper sits, and that's where we're targeting our current step out drilling at Descendant. So again, the system has always been a system that could produce big volumes, previously targeted for 30 million tons by Placido in the early 1990s. And we've liked the area for the same reasons. And finally, have really kind of cracked the code, so to speak, or believe we have, which we're looking to confirm with the step out drilling. If successful, that will then immediately lead to a step out drilling campaign where you can stack tonnage very, very quickly. And we've already outlined, a step up campaign that works at 18 to 20,000 meters, assuming just twice the thickness of Rainbow. And again, these things could be much larger in terms of like a 777 or a Flin Flon style deposit. You get these wide lenses. And so if we're on to something like that, it'd be an initial campaign of at least 10 million tons to add to already nearly 6 million tons of high grade copper we have on the property, building a real scale. And that would just really be the start, as you'd need to obviously continue to delineate the deposit further on.
Okay, and just on that, how does the size of the alteration zone at Descendant compare to some of the other VMS deposits in the Flin Flon district? Obviously, you've got Mike Mazalowski. He probably knows a thing or two on that. Have you got a sense of what you're looking at?
It's truly a monster VMS system. And again, it's a system that drives big tonnage. You see these type of big alteration packages in the likes of Lawler or 777. And again, the alteration system has always brought joy to people's eyes when they go to property and see it. You can actually see the oxidization of the sulfide at surface from Google Earth. So it is widespread. It is significant. What has not ever been cracked as to where to find it. The exploration thesis always was the reason why you see the big alteration system at surface is that the entire surface is overturned. And if it's overturned, your massive sulfides secure those high grades of base and precious metals would be sitting displaced at depth. We had our initial sniff of success there in 2016, where we actually re-entered a placer hole from 1993, deepened it 38 meters, and we hit a 10.5 meter interval of high grade. And we were also in the zinc gold dominant portion of that system at the time. We stepped out from that discovery hole and we weren't able to replicate that success. We hit another hole to the south, but again, when we followed up, we couldn't link the two. We took a bit of a break on the property, had a bunch of success in Eastern Canada, and then ultimately made our comeback to Pine Bay in 2018 with a new mindset and new exploration approach. That led to the discovery of Rainbow. And then we've since hit the Alchemist discovery. It's again about 4 holes into that discovery. But since then, that in having that success and kind of that pattern recognition now on the property of what's hosted, how they're sitting, and what's controlling them, we entered that area of the property where Descendant sits and had a significant step out to make that discovery. So again, we're really proving the long-term exploration thesis by calling into this. And now we just need to confirm that thesis with this current step-out hole.
Right, okay. And what's the rationale behind testing between these sort of multiple targets that you're going to be looking at, Poseidon, Descendant, Odin, and Ra? Why not kind of get a little bit more focus? What's it going to do for you?
Well, we also want to look to make another near-surface discovery on the property. The old mindset in the Flin Flon area is that all the near-surface discoveries had been found. So if you look at the last major operators that have fed into those processing facilities, 777 was discovered in 900, almost 900 meters vertical depth. And that's where that system starts around the 840 meter level and then went down to about 1.7 kilometers underground. Lawler was discovered at 800 meters underground. That actually came within 300 meters of surface, but is now down to 2 kilometers. So again, the mindset has been that the near surface discoveries have been found already, and that was really because of the depth penetration of traditional surface pulse EM. We discovered rainbow at 900 meters underground and then delineated rainbow within 90 meters of surface. So testing these other target areas is for the potential to have another near surface discovery as it sits with rainbow and Pine Bay deposits, which are the two existing known resources in our main resource estimate we announced last year. That has a production throughput of between 13 to 1,500 tons per day with an 8 to 10 year mine life. What you're looking to hit is a sister discovery that could also come near surface. They could double your initial throughput as you develop the large, deep-seated Descendant discovery at depth on the other area of the property. This is similar to what occurred in the early 1990s. Anglo was the operator of the facilities in Flin Flon at the time, and then they were in need of a new discovery with the Trout Lake mine due to unwind after nearly 3 decades of production. That year, they hit 3 mines. One of them was called Canudo Lake, which is kind of analogous to Rainbow. Rainbow's a bit bigger than Canudo, but Canudo also has very, very high grades, and they were able to advance Canudo very quickly into production as they were developing the 777 discovery, which they also made that year at depth. And so, again, our Descendant discovery is a deep-seated discovery there, but these other target areas, target area Poseidon, Odin, and Ra, have the potential to come near surface and be ramp accessible like Rainbow and the Pine Bay deposit.
Okay, interesting. And what about the MT surveys in terms of their significance with regards to some of these low anomalies that have been identified?
Yeah, so we've had a number of iterations of bringing on new geophysical tool sets on the property to really aid us at different times. Because again, if you use one tool, you'll find a lot of mines, and in Surface Pulse EM has found a lot of mines for the community of Flin Flon. I mean, obviously there's a track record to show that. But again, if you only use one tool, you can only really find one thing one way, and you could be overlooking so many more potential discoveries. And because these deposits at Pine Bay are all near vertical, very steeply dipping, it really creates a very small geophysical tool set if you use the traditional exploration approach. So historically, we brought on an IP. An IP is used to mapping these alteration systems geophysically, and that led us to the Rainbow deposit and that discovery. And then we brought on MT as a kind of a new iteration of using geophysics to look for that similar rock property in terms of resistivity. And that's why we brought on MT, because MT looks for the similar rock properties as IP, but has a different depth profile. And so when we hit Descendant at depth, we wanted to really see how that was going to be mapped with MT and help aid us stepping out of that discovery. And in doing so, that really shined a light on other areas of the property that we had already been kind of guided to with other geophysical tool sets, but hadn't really kind of cracked the code over in that area of the property just yet. So when we did the MT survey over the Descendant discovery, it confirmed in a map that alteration that was directly associated with the Descendant mineralization that we're hitting at depth. It also suggested that Descendant, like we believe, that's also suggested by geology and geochemistry, is to continue at depth where we're going to find that high-grade copper in that system. But then it shined a light in other areas where you can't map these alteration packages at surface because of the lakes. And it mapped a very, very large resistivity low anomaly right directly to the west of the Descendant discovery, and that's target area Poseidon. That sits along strike from our known Rainbow deposit. So again, it shined a light on other areas of the property that have the potential to host other deposits, because these things occur in clusters, and we really scratch the surface on the broader Pine Bay project area based upon the exploration done to date on the property.
I'm really interested into the technologies that you're using, and the mix of technologies that you're using, because they're sounding more and more like a polymetallic, right? You've got super high grade copper over here. You're talking about lead, zinc. You've got a lot going on there. Do you think, again, in terms of messaging to the market, you can report things as copper equivalents if you like, or however you want, frankly, but is there any way that you can control what you're drilling for and what you're finding using the data that is available to you, or does it not matter? It's about the value of the ton, the metal per ton.
Well, yeah, I know that we're looking for high grade, and it's the value of the ton of rock at the end of the day. In these VMS systems, they're going to be zonational. So you're going to get areas of the deposit that are going to be more zinc gold dominant. And then when you get more proximal, and when I say proximal, we're going back to the kind of the basics. We're looking for deposits that were displaced from subsea for volcanic activity. And when you have this vent, or imagine a vent of a volcano, the closer you are to the vent, that's where you're going to find the high-grade copper. And as you get away from that vent, that's where you're going to get the zinc gold portion. So when we're hitting the zinc gold portion of the system, we know we're in a big volcanic system. We're now getting confirmation that the system was displaced in the grades of mineralization that we want to see. And we have evidence of that in other areas that are nearby the Descendant that have been high grade. And now it's really just going to the joy, and the joy for us is going to be the high grade copper that these deposits are known for. And again, we're hitting some of the richest copper grades on the planet, but we're not in Central Africa. So we don't have that geopolitical risk. We're in a known Canadian mining jurisdiction that have hosted these deposits over a century. The community that we're nearby is built on mining, and they want more mines. The flagship 777 mine shut down 2 years ago. So we have the will of the people behind us. We've got the support of the government, both on the community level, the provincial level, and we've got the market behind us in terms of the need for these base metals. So again, we're building scale on the property through discovery this year, and that's ultimately what's going to drive the valuation of the company to much higher heights moving forward.
Okay, yeah, I hear the will of the people. They want it for sure. Are there any sort of challenges and risks in exploring in the Flin Flon mining district?
I mean, the challenges are, again, these deposits are difficult to find. If they were easy, everybody would be doing it and be found left and right. So again, you've got to reduce that risk by having a team that knows how to find them. You have to have a team that's shown a tremendous amount of success at finding them. And I think the biggest thing for myself is you want a team that's constantly evolving. Because if you're constantly evolving, your knowledge base is evolving, your discoveries can follow in suit, and there's evidence of that through the drill bit from our discoveries on the table that we've already found up until now. And then again, I think we have a tremendous amount of confidence that we're on today with stepping out at Descendant, and we're going to find not only in the targets that we outlined this year, but moving forward. We actually also doubled the entire land package at Pine Bay this year. So up until more recently, it was a 5,000 hectare land package. We doubled that to the north. It's over 10,000 hectares now. And this is really prime ground to host new discoveries. It's been very sparsely explored, very shallow exploration, and no disrespect to people that have explored that area of the property before, but I would argue very rudimentary in terms of the exploration tool set deployed across that broader land package.
Right. Okay. So you hope that there's some promising targets, or beyond those mentioned. I think in the press release I was reading a little bit about that. Yeah. Okay. With in regards to the project's proximity to existing infrastructure, you say the will of the people and all that kind of good stuff. Do you feel that there's a timeline in your mind, or a process in your mind, or some kind of structure or strategy in your mind to move some of this from exploration to development?
Yes, certainly. That's well underway as we speak. We've already done all the baseline studies necessary to submit an advanced exploration permit. The engineering work has also been underway to that end. We've retained the environmental firm that's helped permit the last number of mines, including the 777 mine and the Lawler mine, as well as the Reed Lake mine. That were the last three base metal mines in Flin Flon. We've also retained the engineer. I was a former senior engineer at the 777 mine that's recently worked on advanced exploration permits that have been received by other companies in Manitoba. And of course, we have Peter Jones that joined our team, who is really the best engineer possible to work on these type of deposits, given the fact that he both oversaw the development and built 777 and oversaw the initial discovery and development of the Lawler mine. Two of the four largest mines in Flin Flon's history. So again, we're doing all that work to submit for an advanced exploration permit later this year. We're looking to submit that by December and receive that by mid next year. The advanced exploration permit allows you then to ramp down to those deposits and take a bulk sample that can be processed at a local concentrator that's currently in operation. and those conversations are being had to that end as well. So again, we're advancing both Rainbow and Pine Bay through the permitting process. Subsequent to getting an AEP, you then can submit for your final environmental license and production permits that can follow there quickly thereafter. There's a permitting regime in Manitoba that's supportive of these mines. If you look at the Reed Lake mine, that was permitted within about 18 months to 2 years in 2013, and that was located within a provincial park. If you look at Lawler, received its after submitting its project description, its full-blown production permits within 12 months. So again, there's a quick turnaround to permitting in Manitoba. Once you get to this stage, the province is supportive of mining and is driving really demand for critical minerals. And in fact, Callinex possesses the only copper resource in the province of Manitoba. So again, we're going to be advancing those deposits with an AEP, or Advanced Exploration Permit. That work has been completed and has actually been supported by the province. So we received a grant from the Manitoba Mineral Development Fund that's paying for the majority of this work as well. I should reiterate, though, we are an exploration company, and 90% of our CapEx is going to be going to the drill bit to driving for these discoveries and really building a critical scale, not for just the next 10 years of mine life for the community, but for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years is what our ultimate goal is on the property.
Okay, so it's obviously support likely not just from people, but also the grant from the Mineral Development Fund there. Looking slightly more broadly, right, it's been a funny year for copper in the sense that we kind of went shooting up earlier this year up to $5 before sort of settling back down, around the $4 mark. It's up at around 455, 460 at the moment. Again, it's kind of sending mixed signals depending on what it's seemingly the news out of China. How are you reading that, and how does it affect your decision making?
Well, I mean, you always got to be tight with the drill budget and really focus at any time you're the drill on the highest probability of success. I mean, at the end of the day, you're kind of managing risk in many ways in terms of our exploration portfolio and wanting to deploy that the best way possible. So it doesn't really change to that end because we always are running the company to that mindset. But it's no different than really navigating a choppy ocean. You've got to adjust the sails and make the best of what can come around. We mitigated dilution with a much smaller capital raise, and we're putting that money to work where you're going to have the biggest upside. So when the market does turn, and I have a lot of conviction that the market will turn in the not too distant future, we're there to take advantage of that with news that has a big, meaningful impact on the overall value of the assets and the assets moving forward to continue to drive that value. So again, you just have to adjust your exploration budgets to that end and be a bit tighter with kind of maybe more target generation, which we're working on moving forward to the north. So again, I think that you have to be ready with the news and not stop advancing. Just be more mindful with the treasury as you advance.
Right. Okay.
Because you again, in a world where you're looking to a brighter market, after the U.S. presidential election, I think that that's something that a lot of the market's a bit hesitant on. And which way is that going to go? Whether it goes one way or another, I don't think it's going to change things. I mean, realistically, a whole lot. But I do think the market's sentiment will shift. And I think as copper prices go to higher heights and maintain that action, not pull like a Zinc where you move up and come down pretty quickly thereafter, maintain that bull market, you're going to have these equities follow suit, and companies that are well positioned with an asset that's, again, a strong asset that, long-term is viable no matter what the proper market is, you're going to take off and really reap the rewards for that. I think those that aren't able to capitalize right now, it's going to be real tough for them, because as the market turns, they're not going to have the work and the news flow to sustain the market as it moves and shifts to a more positive market.
So you're optimistic about the copper market, one presumes, not because you drank the Kool-Aid, but because the data supports it. Do you think the Canadian markets are going to be there for explorers when they're needed? Because they've been absent without leave for the last 3 years. What's going to give them cause for joy? Why should they come back?
Well, I mean, they have to come back because if there's no exploration, there's no new mines. So you really have no solution to the higher commodity prices. And ultimately, the cure for high prices, as they say, is high prices. So right now, again, I think that you've just got to stay the course, realize that there are disconnects in junior mining. This isn't the first time you got a complete disconnect. And in terms of the underlying intrinsic value of these assets and these companies from the kind of the fundamentals that are driving that value, which is the commodity price environment. And that's when you really pick your spots. I think double down, increase your position, because when these things turn, they will turn very, very quickly. And you want to be positioned to that turn, because again, if you're not in it, you'll miss it in many ways, or you miss most of the moves, because most of the moves happen very, very quickly in the commodity space. So again, I wouldn't be scared away from investing in Canadian stocks, because again, that's what is driving exploration. If you want exposure to exploration, you need to invest in this area, in these markets.
You obviously think there's a few conferences going around at the moment. I think a few people reporting that Europe seems to be quite a good destination for money, different type of money. Have you experienced that, or are you getting that feedback?
Yeah, no. So I think we got excellent feedback. I think everyone's kind of overall seeing the same things that we've discussed. I'm sure it's a topic probably likely discussed with other executives or other people that you have on our show. But again, I think the European investors have a long-term view, particularly in base metals and gold space. Obviously, I mean, European investors have always been very supportive of the gold industry, and I think that's consistent to that. I think that they want to see these names. They want to see companies like Callinex over there, and they want to continue to invest in exploration. So the Europeans haven't changed their long-term stable outlook. I do find them to be a much more patient investor type, which is what you need in a business cycle, that it can be very long, and it is intrinsically very long. So commodities, it's kind of moving like a big tanker, not a speedboat. And the North American investors are looking for speedboats as opposed to, I think, long, large ocean sailors.
Well, we shall see. It looks like an exciting time, picking up certainly for copper at the moment. So as always, appreciate you coming and talking to us about what's going on there, and let us know how the drilling goes, okay?
Thanks so much for having me, and excited to be back soon with drill results.